That report by Mashirima Kapombe brings us to our conversation with Janet Muthoni Ouko. She's the former CEC Education. Janet, thanks for being with us tonight. Now, as Mashirima has detailed there, and she's listed a number of schools there, so the ghost of school fires in the country. And in the year 2024, we continue to report of incidents of children being caught in these fires, some losing their lives. And I see, apart from Endarasha, Hillside, and Asumbi Girls Boarding Primary School, the rest are secondary schools. So before we get into really where the rain started beating us, who should take responsibility for this?
Thank you, Lillian. And I also want to join my fellow Kenyans in expressing really deep sympathies and condolences to the families and the community of the school at Kieni. And I know that many parents really feel very distraught tonight. And it's a conversation that really we must have as a country. I am sitting here thinking how a 9-year-old child trapped in an inferno at midnight. And I'm wondering, even in the face of a very elaborate policy and safety manual, even provide windows that are open, they don't have mesh, even provide all that. Just imagine how a 9-year-old can be able to navigate that situation of an inferno at midnight. And I even before I start asking who do we blame, I really want to say that maybe it is a time that we have a very candid conversation as a country about boarding schools.
Right, Janet, and you know, we're talking about children as young as 9 years old being in boarding school.
Yeah.
A 9-year-old child is literally still, I mean, for lack of a better word, a baby.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, boarding schools and how young is too young. I mean, we know that there are exceptional cases where, due to different varying circumstances, parents or guardians find it necessary to have their children in boarding schools. But around regulation and boarding schools and how young is too young.
Yeah, and I know that every other time that we have had this conversation about boarding schools, we've had a section of Kenyans pushing back and saying there are circumstances that have led us to put our children in boarding schools. And we respect that. But then again, I think even as government tries to provide explanation, I'm looking for an explanation as to how somebody expected a 9 or 10-year-old to navigate the circumstances at that particular time of the night, and really wondering, in a dormitory that had 150 children, did we have 5 or 6? What are the caregiver, situations at that particular time? Especially because this time round, we're talking about very, very young children, and I don't know that as Kenyans, do we feel that we've done those children justice? Do we feel that we have made the right decisions for them as adults? And do we really feel that this is a conversation that we want to take forward? Every other time that there is this kind of an incident, like, for example, the Nyeri High issue with the prefects and the Changuli, we had the ministry revise the prefecture system at schools, and then we had the president, sort of a democratically elected leadership at school level to try and really cause harmony at the school. That was a result of that. And then the issues of Bombolulu, where the girls were perishing because the windows and all that. So the manuals were revised. And then we had the very disturbing incident at St. Kizito, where in a mixed school situation, the boys stand against the girls, and we lost 19 girls died to that. And government reacted by doing what? By sort of encouraging, did not give a policy per se, but sort of encouraging separation of boys from girls, so that then nowadays we have only boys' schools and we have only girls' school. Now, the result of that is something that parents are grappling with now. They don't like talking about it, but we have unprecedented cases of children who have been suspended from schools because of homosexuality. And this came from the knee-jerk reactions that instead of us thinking critically, I mean, how do we ensure that boys and girls coexist in a school? Because that is a discipline issue. The minister ministry reacted by encouraging a separation of boys from girls. Now we have boys-only schools and girls-only schools. And look at what we are struggling with now. Right now, as we speak, and parents can confirm this, we have so many children who have been suspended because Kenyans, the Kenyan schools don't know how to deal with homosexuality issues. We only react by suspending and expelling them from school. Now, this particular one, Lillian, I really look forward to a situation where the government or the Ministry of Education wants to pronounce itself about the situation of boarding schools, especially in public schools. In secondary schools, we can have a conversation because systemically, government has not invested in a way that can make us wake up this morning and say that we do not want to have boarding schools.
Right, so you think that there needs to be a conversation around totally abolishing boarding schools for primary school children?
It's a matter of guidance from government. I want the government to tell me how a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old could have navigated that situation, even in the presence of good grills, or good doors. How can a 9 or 10-year-old navigate that situation? Are we protecting our children enough? And who should protect the children if it is not the government?
Let's talk about regulation in terms of private versus public schools. There is concern over the fact that public schools basically get the heat every time such incidents happen or when there is issues to do with perhaps food poisoning. But in terms of regulation and the debate between private schools and public schools in terms of, for instance, the issue of congestion, the school administration, we understand that in this particular school, which is a private school, there were 150 children in a dormitory. So that conversation around regulation and the general feeling that public schools adhere more?
The fact of the matter is that private schools are better than public schools, and that is fact. Public schools are really congested. And one of the things that you're likely to see from this scenario is government coming so hard and so harsh because this is a private establishment. But the truth of the matter is there is nothing private or public about this whole thing because policy and regulation is run by government. This is not a criminal enterprise that the entrepreneurs of the schools were running. So government had satisfied itself that all the necessary conditions for safety of learners had been met. And therefore, for me, the conversation as to whether public or private really does not occur here. In any case, if we're talking about congestion, and these are the, I have seen the president talking about frankness and really truthfulness and honesty when it comes to the conversations around where we are at current. Can the government make an admission as to if really tonight, as we speak, the public schools dormitories, is the government convinced that the congestion issues are dealt with? You know, when the Moi Nairobi girls issue happened, and these parents were making an admission, parents did not know. Some of them had not even seen what the dormitories looked like. They were just learning also from press that it was a triple decker. Tonight, do parents know where they left their children? Do they know the conditions? Do they know that should anything happen, God forbid, that their children cannot be able to navigate? I do not know that. I know that I don't sound nice, but this is a conversation that we must have as a country, because if we do not do this, then we will still gather here, Lillian, when something else has happened, and we will still be agonizing. But we have to have a conversation right now about boarding school. They're not safe for our children.
They're not safe for our children. And just as we close, there's a serious outcry across social media. Parents still in the dead of the night. Some were there from very early in the morning at the scene of that tragedy, demanding answers and asking where their children, are. As of now, we're being told that there are several children that are unaccounted for. Surely, Janet, somebody must take responsibility for what has happened. That is why I'm asking you, in your opinion, coming in the wake of 2008, when safety guidelines were clearly put in place and people were put to task to ensure that boarding schools and schools across the country are safe for our children, who should take responsibility for this particular incident?
And sadly, our country, nobody takes responsibility. Nobody takes responsibility. And this is why, because the investigations now are up to government. it is for the government to tell us this, and this is what happened. I am very sure they will tell us this is what happened, avoiding the places where they think that they can be held accountable by people, and that is certainly what is happening. But I think, Lillian, it is only fair for government to interrogate itself. If really it was as a result of recklessness from the institution, there is the part of responsibility on the part of the institution. But notwithstanding that, there are quality assurance officers, there are officers of the Ministry of Education that I am sure frequent that school, or maybe they do not. Those are the kinds of conversations that we are expecting, so that even in future, then we can be able to trust government when the government is telling us our children are safe. For example, if that school has not been visited for the last 1 month, for the last 2 months, then we have cause to worry that who visits our schools, who is ensuring that, for example, the 2008 policy manual is being implemented, and where is the audit for the schools that have complied and for the schools that have not complied, which schools have been sanctioned. We can clearly call out the schools that we know already are congested. Where is the compliance status for all our schools across the board? Right. And even before we do so much about fires, the other time we were talking about school buses, not being safe. Mm-hmm. The other time we were talking about a situation in Mukumu Girls where there was food poisoning. So really, and I think as a parting shot, the Ministry of Education, the buck stops with you. Mm-hmm. Please guarantee the safety of children in schools and lead a conversation about boarding schools for our children.
Janet Muthoni Ouko, former CEC Education, sharing her thoughts after the tragic loss of lives at the Hillside Endarasha Academy in Nyeri County. Many thanks for that. And away from that story,